Admiral Threx stood on the bridge of the Imperial warship Valkyr's Wrath, staring at the blinking red signal on the main display, his four narrow eyes fixed in disbelief. The sensor techs were silent, each trying to explain the impossible with numbers and readings that made no sense. A vessel, small, old-fashioned, unmarked, was entering Imperial space at high velocity. Its engine signature didn't match any known galactic standard, and its hull gave off strange echoes when scanned, as if absorbing or distorting sensor waves. "That's no registered vessel," Threx finally muttered, more to himself than anyone else, and turned toward the officer at communications. "Send hails. All frequencies." But the ship didn't answer. It just kept coming, slow and deliberate, aimed straight at Outpost Virella, one of the Empire's key defense stations in the neutral zone. The outpost commander, Captain Relic, called in with concern, requesting orders. "Should we fire?" he asked, panic creeping into his voice. "Not yet," Threx replied. It might be a probe or malfunctioning AI craft. But inside, the Admiral knew better. He'd seen a lot in his 40 cycles of service, but never a shit like this. No nation, no species, would be foolish enough to send an unregistered vessel toward an Imperial outpost. That was a death sentence. And yet, here it was, calm, quiet, and steady in its course. The ship slowed as it approached the outpost's perimeter, then stopped just outside weapons range, hanging in space like a shadow. The outpost's auto-defenses locked on it, but no energy weapons fired. Suddenly, a pulse of ancient analog data burst from the ship. The outpost's systems stuttered, unsure how to translate the message. Engineers scrambled to decode it, converting the strange waveform into audio. The bridge fell silent as a sound played from the speakers, a human voice, unmistakably Terran in accent, rough and full of confidence. It laughed, just once, then spoke 5 words, delivery complete. "You're welcome." Then a string of coordinates and silence. The ship made no other move. Threx felt a chill crawl across his back ridge. The Terrans had been wiped out over 200 years ago. The siege of Sol was brutal, and no survivors were ever confirmed. Humanity had vanished, its records scrubbed from Imperial databases. But this shit. Its construction was unmistakable angled steel, ceramic plating, exposed power lines, and an old-style fusion core. Primitive, but powerful. "Board it," Threx commanded. Now, within minutes, an Imperial boarding team docked with the mystery ship. Inside, they found no life forms, no defense systems. The ship was empty, like a ghost from the past. Its interior was crude but efficient, with manual controls and physical switches, not neural links or biogel interfaces. In the cargo bay were dozens of black containers. Each one was sealed with a code in old Terran script. When the crew opened the first, they gasped. It was filled with data drives, detailed maps of Imperial fleet movements, security codes, and classified files on high-ranking officials involved in corruption. Another box contained prototype weapons, some based on known tech, others completely new. The third container was the most shocking. It held genetic logs and communication transcripts, proving war crimes committed by the Empire against peaceful planets. All this from one ship. All dropped off with a laugh, and, "You're welcome." Threx stared at the data, unable to speak. He had to report this to the High Command immediately. But before he could compose his message, a new alert blared across the bridge. "Multiple warp signatures inbound," shouted a sensor officer. 12 more ships, same design, all entering different sectors of Imperial space. Threx's mind reeled. If each one carried a different payload of truth and chaos, the entire empire could collapse in days. He looked at the still, silent vessel floating near Outpost Virella and realized it wasn't a ship at all. It was a weapon, a psychological bomb meant to detonate not with fire, but with knowledge. The Empire had kept control through fear and silence. But this ship and the others like it whispered truths that could burn down worlds. Threx's voice was hoarse when he finally spoke. Trace the origin of that signal. Find out where it came from. I want every listening post and deep space array focused on its path. The comms team scrambled. Slowly, a pattern emerged. The ship had entered from deep space, beyond the known star maps, traveling alone for decades, maybe longer. It had no beacon, no automated alerts. It was never meant to be found until now. And the timing was perfect. Civil unrest was rising. Border colonies were angry. The Empire was stretched thin after years of expansion. Whoever had launched this ship knew exactly when to strike. Threx felt the weight of history crashing onto his shoulders. If humans had truly returned, or worse, if they had never been gone, then the entire galaxy was standing on the edge of a storm it wasn't ready to face. The ship, now tethered to the outpost, sat in silence, its single message still echoing in the minds of everyone who heard it. Delivery complete. You're welcome. Admiral Threx stood at the center of the Imperial command deck, his hands behind his back, watching the strange vessel float silently near Outpost Virella, still tethered to the station like a ghost clinging to the past. The crew around him moved quickly, yet quietly, as if speaking too loud might wake something inside the ship. It had not moved since the analog message was played, nor had it responded to any scans or signals. The boarding team had returned hours ago, pale and shaken, with reports of no life aboard but dozens of black crates holding data and weapons capable of igniting rebellion. The message still rang in Threx's mind, delivery complete. You're welcome. That voice, the human voice, felt like a whisper from history, and it disturbed him more than he wanted to admit. The Empire had hidden many things, and one of them was what really happened to Earth. Most believed humanity had been wiped out, but whispers among the upper officers hinted otherwise, that some Terrans had vanished into the dark beyond mapped space, leaving only rumors behind. Now, with 12 more ships arriving across Imperial territories, all silent and all carrying more disruptive technology and damning data, chaos was beginning to stir. Sectors once loyal to the Empire were now locking down, with governors calling emergency meetings and fleets repositioning in fear of what might come next. Threx's orders were simple: intercept and investigate. One ship had been enough to make every command station across the core systems nervous. 12 would send tremors through the whole Empire. At Station Ordis, deep in the mining sectors, one of the new vessels had arrived without warning. Unlike the first, this ship ejected its containers into space and then burned its engines until it disintegrated in a blast of fusion fire. The data boxes survived and were retrieved by the stunned station crew. Inside were blueprints for high-yield energy weapons that no one had ever seen before. And worse, a list of hidden surveillance devices secretly installed in the homes of mining leaders, devices placed by the Empire itself. The information spread fast, faster than Threx could control. He sent out contact protocols, strict orders to hail and disable any unregistered vessels immediately. But the ships ignored all signals. They were not interested in talking, not even in fighting. They had one mission to deliver: disrupt and vanish. At Council Planet Braxis, a similar event played out. Another ship arrived, this one drifting with no engines, no heat, and no power readings. Imperial forces towed it in carefully, fearing traps, but inside they found a library of Imperial war crimes, including images and footage of entire colonies wiped clean by experimental weapons. The footage was horrifying, and worse, verified. People who once lived under the Empire's control now saw it for what it was: merciless, secretive, and broken. Uprisings began in scattered systems, small and fast. Weapons built from the Terran blueprints appeared in rebel hands almost overnight. Fleets that had not seen action in years were suddenly on the move. Governors demanded protection, nobles called for lockdowns, and the High Command grew silent, unsure how to respond without admitting how much they had hidden. Threx returned to his chambers aboard Volker's Wrath, his mind spinning with reports. He opened the crate from the first ship again, this time looking deeper into the metadata of the files. There, hidden behind layers of encryption, was something different: coordinates, names, and a single word: echoes. He didn't understand what it meant, but it showed up in every message and dataset from the other ships too. Whatever Echoes was, it connected all of this. He summoned Historian Viceroy Elmav, an aging scholar who once specialized in pre-Empire history, especially the rise and fall of Earth. When Elmav saw the files, his face grew pale. He explained that near the end of the Siege of Sol, a Terran scientist named Keller Oren had proposed a project code named Echoes of Sol. It was never confirmed, and most thought it was just a myth, a final desperate idea to scatter automated ships across the galaxy carrying Terran knowledge, secrets, and warnings in case Earth fell. These ships, according to the myth, would wait in deep space, hiding until the right moment to wake and deliver their payloads to bring down those responsible for Sol's destruction. Threx didn't believe in myths, but now he had no choice. The evidence was in front of him. The Empire's greatest enemy had not been defeated. It had simply waited, silent and patient, like a lion in the dark. And now it had returned, not with guns, but with truths sharp enough to cut through the heart of the Empire. Before Elmav left, he gave Threx one last warning: if more ships were coming, they might not stop at data drops. Some of the echoes, according to legend, carried not just knowledge, but vengeance. As if summoned by the words, an alert flashed across Threx's terminal. Another unregistered ship had entered the Carthan Drift, a region of space housing the Empire's Weapons Research Division. This one was different. It had no cargo, no signal, and no movement. It just sat there, dead in space, as if daring someone to approach. Threx knew they had no choice. Contact protocols had failed. These ships would not speak. They would not explain. They had come to do what they were built for, and nothing would stop them. He stared at the star map, at the growing red dots marking each echo as it arrived, and realized something terrible. This was not random. It was coordinated. It was war without guns. It was a slow, quiet burn, turning the Empire's own people against it, one secret at a time. And worst of all, there was no enemy to aim at. Only the past, long buried and now rising like a wave. Threx clenched his fists, knowing the real battle was just beginning, And this time, words might be more dangerous than weapons. Across the galaxy, the red dots on Admiral Threx's command map were multiplying, each marking the place where another unregistered vessel had appeared and changed the balance of power without firing a single shot. These strange ships, clearly Terran in origin, came in silence, dropped their mysterious cargo, and either vanished or self-destructed, leaving behind chaos and questions. Threx knew the situation was growing worse by the hour. Whole sectors were now cutting ties with the Imperial core, emboldened by the truths revealed in the Terran data caches. Some systems discovered they had been robbed for years by corrupt officials. Others saw proof that their ancestors were betrayed by the Empire long ago. And now, in every spaceport and slum, people whispered about the Echo's ships from the past, born of human desperation, sent like seeds into the stars, now blooming in fire and truth. Threx tried to rally the fleets, but he couldn't order them to attack ships that offered no resistance, especially not when those ships were giving the people what the Empire had taken: knowledge, freedom, and hope. Across command rooms and palaces, the word Echoes became a curse. It was not just the name of a project anymore. It was a storm rising from the ruins of Sol. Meanwhile, in the desert world of Varnock III, a young courier named Ren Havik crouched inside a wrecked observation tower, staring at a handheld screen blinking with an odd signal he had never seen before. His job was simple: deliver low-priority messages to remote outposts. But this signal had interrupted his routine route, forcing his ship to drop out of warp. What puzzled him most was that the signal was old, yet it pulsed in perfect rhythm, guiding him toward a set of coordinates far from any known system. It wasn't an emergency beacon, nor a distress call. It was something else, something deliberate. Ren had never cared much about the Empire or history. As a half-human hybrid, he was used to being ignored. His father had vanished when he was a child, and his mother, a Thal technician, died in a mining accident. He grew up drifting, from station to station, never quite accepted by either side of his blood. But when the news of the Echoes started spreading, something stirred in him. Not fear, not anger, something older, like a voice waking up. He followed the signal in secret, leaving behind his delivery route and slipping into deep space where the stars grew quiet and cold. After 3 jumps and a long drift near a dead star, he found it a small relay station hidden in the shadow of an asteroid, its surface covered in markings that looked human but older, carved in steel, faded by time. As his ship approached, the station activated on its own, releasing a tight beam transmission directly to Ren's cockpit. It spoke in English, a language he barely understood, but the words felt familiar in a way that made his heart beat faster. "Phase 2 begins now," the voice said. "Sol sleeps no more." Then silence. Ren docked with the station carefully and entered through a rusted airlock. Inside, he found it was still running on a low-energy core, the walls covered in human writing, old Earth symbols, and mission logs. A single terminal in the center lit up when he approached. It recognized him. Genetic profile accepted. Lineage confirmed. "Welcome, Havik, Ren." The terminal opened a hidden chamber revealing cryo records, digital storage units, and more messages, this time with names and dates. He was looking at the control room for an Echo launcher, part of the original Echoes of Sol program. The files explained everything. Before Earth fell, its leaders realized they could not win by force. So they built the Echo's small ships, carrying knowledge, evidence, and artificial intelligence, programmed to activate centuries later, when the galaxy had forgotten about humanity. The goal was never to destroy the Empire with fire, but with truth. The truth would do the work slowly, over time, city by city, heart by heart. Ren's eyes scanned the screen as images of Earth, its final battles, and its leaders filled the terminal. Then, a new window opened Athena, the last human AI still alive in fragmented form, hidden across echo relays. She spoke to him directly, her voice calm, gentle, yet full of purpose. "Ren," she said, "you are the key. Your blood holds access codes to the last phase. The Empire believes humanity is gone. Let them think so. But now is the time to finish what was started." She showed him a map, locations of remaining echoes, some still dormant, some already active, and then a target, the throne world, seat of imperial power, where the truth would have the most impact. Ren didn't know how to fight. He had no army, no fleet, no allies. But he had something more dangerous, the knowledge stored in the echoes, and now access to the network Athena had left behind. As he downloaded the data into his ship, he realized he was no longer just a courier. He was the next echo. Back on Volker's Wrath, Threx watched as civil unrest spread to the mid-core planets. Fleets refused orders, governors vanished, and systems began renaming themselves, dropping imperial titles. He heard rumors of a signal an ancient relay lighting up near the edge of known space. Some believed it was nothing. Others feared it meant the final phase had begun. Threx didn't know who Ren Havoc was, not yet. But soon, the Empire would. The echoes of Sol were no longer shadows from the past. They were voices, rising louder every day. And one of them had just begun to speak. The throne room of the Imperial Core was silent, heavy with fear, as High Empress Viral stood before her most trusted advisors, each one unsure how to explain the chaos now gripping the galaxy. The once proud Galactic Empire, spread across thousands of systems, was starting to break apart from within, not by invasion, but by secrets unleashed by the echoes of Sol. The Terran vessels, long believed to be myths or wreckage lost in time, were now proving more powerful than any fleet or weapon. Across the stars, people no longer whispered, they shouted. Rebellions had sparked on over 50 planets. Local leaders, once loyal to the Empire, now turned away, claiming their freedom and using the Terran data to expose every dark corner of Imperial control. Holoscreens across the mid-core systems played human messages showing corruption, war crimes, and betrayals that the public had never known. Military commanders found their own soldiers refusing to act, questioning orders, even joining protesters. Threx watched the empire he had served for 40 years crumble faster than he thought possible, and still the ships kept coming. New echoes appeared weekly, each one carrying more files, more evidence, more truths, and none of them could be traced to a single source. They came from the black edges of space like ghosts, activated at the perfect moment. Then came the message that shook everything, a mass transmission, sent on all Imperial channels, from someone calling himself Ren Havoc. His face was young, part human, unfamiliar, yet his words were clear and strong. "I am an echo of Sol," he said. "I carry the final key. The Empire will answer, not to our weapons, but to our history. The galaxy deserves truth, and we will bring it." Then the screen showed a live feed from within the Imperial vaults themselves, secret archives thought untouchable. Someone, somehow, had broken into the most secure database in the Empire, and now its contents were being leaked. Names of officials who sold colonies to pirates, records of failed experiments on alien species, hidden wars, hidden treaties, hidden executions. It was a flood, and there was no stopping it. Empress Viral ordered the fleet to hunt Ren Havoc, to track the signal and destroy every echo left. But it was too late. Even the fleet was fractured. Whole squadrons refused to follow those commands. Some declared neutrality. Others sided with the growing movement that now called itself the Soul Accord, a loose alliance of systems inspired by the echoes. They believed the Terrans hadn't vanished, they had waited. And now they had returned, not in person, but in spirit, to end the rule that had silenced them. In the outer ring, Marshal Dovek defected, taking with him 20 Star Destroyers. He pledged them to the Soul Accord, claiming he would no longer serve lies. In the industrial zone of Kavaris Prime, workers seized the factories and turned their machines to build for the rebellion. Even the information network was falling, as Imperial channels were overwhelmed by Soul Accord broadcasts, telling stories of Earth, of its fall, and of the last messages from its people. Meanwhile, Ren continued his mission, guided by Athena's fragmented AI, hopping from system to system, activating dormant echoes, waking up data caches, and gaining allies along the way. He met engineers who built new drives based on ancient Terran blueprints. He found smugglers who remembered the name Soul, passed down in secret like a bedtime story. He even saved a dying AI fragment from a black zone near the Void Barrier, a memory of a human scientist who once dreamed of peace, now restored and ready to serve. Every day, his signal grew stronger, and every day, the Empire grew weaker. But Ren knew it wouldn't last forever. The Empress would strike back soon, and when she did, it would be with everything she had left. That moment came when the Empire discovered Echo Nexus, the central relay hidden near the dead planet Meridan. It was the heart of the Echo's network, buried deep inside a hollow moon, protected by ancient defense systems. Ren had gone there to finish what his ancestors started. He planned to release the final package, a full history of Earth, unedited, complete with messages from its last leaders, warnings to the future, and the truth behind the siege that destroyed humanity. But before he could, Imperial forces arrived. A fleet of 60 ships, led by Admiral Threx himself, surrounded the moon. They blocked every escape route. Ren stood inside the echo chamber, staring at the screen, Athena's voice echoing around him. "This is the moment," she said. "They will try to stop you. But remember, you are not alone. You are the last voice of Earth." As Threx opened communications, he expected a plea or surrender. Instead, he saw Ren, calm and clear. "This is your final chance," Ren said. "Join us, or be remembered as the man who tried to silence the truth." Threx hesitated. The boy reminded him of a soldier he once knew, brave, bold, and dangerous, because he believed in something greater than power. But Threx was still loyal, and so he gave the order to fire. Energy beams struck the surface of the moon. Shields flared, and explosions rocked the outer shell. Inside, Ren activated the final sequence. Athena's core lit up, and the echoes began their last broadcast. Across the stars, every comm station lit up with the same message, one final truth from Soul. As the Empire's ships pounded the moon, They watched helplessly as every citizen, every system, every being connected to the network began to receive a flood of files, voices, and images from humanity's past. Soul had returned, not with war, but with memory. And no weapon could stop that .in the quiet just after the fire. The stars above Meridian pulsed faintly as if holding their breath, watching the final battle unfold in silence, while deep inside the hollow moon, Ren Havok stood alone in the echo chamber, sweat running down his face, eyes locked on the console where Athena's core glowed with growing light. Around him, the walls shook as imperial blasts broke through the moon's crust, sending dust and sparks down from the ceiling. Yet he did not run, because he knew the sequence had begun, and nothing could stop it now. The last message from Soul was no longer a whisper in the void, but a wave of light sweeping across the galaxy, spreading through satellites, relays, old Earth tech still hidden in forgotten places, and even the Empire's own systems, forcing terminals open with lines of ancient code, each one displaying history, long erased, truths buried for centuries, and voices that had once cried out in the final days of Earth. Across the stars, people stopped to listen. Miners on the edge worlds paused in their tunnels. Scholars on the council planets dropped their datapads. Even fleet officers and warships sat frozen as the message unfolded, showing Earth as it had been in its final moments, not destroyed in a single act of war, but hunted, betrayed, abandoned, and then silenced by the very empire that claimed to protect peace. They saw footage of burned cities, children hiding in bunkers, leaders begging for help that never came, and most of all, they saw the first Echo Builders men and women who looked into the camera and said that one day the truth would return, and when it did, the galaxy would have to choose what kind of future it wanted. As the message reached the throne world, Empress Viral sat alone in her dark chamber, the feed glowing in front of her, showing her ancestors signing the death order for Earth, not out of fear, but out of greed, because the Terran scientists had developed tech that could not be controlled, ideas that threatened imperial power. They were marked for extinction, but they had not died, not really, because their voices, their knowledge, and their plan had lived on in the echoes, now fully awakened across every system. Protests turned into revolts, silence turned into songs of rebellion, and even imperial captains dropped their banners, switching sides, not out of fear, but out of shame. Admiral Threx, aboard his flagship just outside Meridian, watched the firestorm die down, and saw his officers staring at him, waiting, unsure if they would be ordered to finish what they started or finally stand down. And in that moment, Threx made a choice he never thought he would make. He ordered the ceasefire, powered down the weapons, and opened his comm to Ren, saying only, "We hear you. It's over." And though no treaty was signed that day, the war ended in spirit, not with victory, but with truth. Ren stepped out of the chamber, body weak, but eyes bright, knowing that Soul had done what it was meant to do, not with ships, but with memory. And as the echo chamber slowly powered down for the last time, Athena's voice came again, softer now, proud, saying, "You were the final spark, Ren. Soul is awake, and the galaxy will never forget again." From that day forward, the stars held new stories, not of domination, but of rebirth, and people across the galaxy, whether human or not, spoke the name of Earth not with pity, but with honor, because the world that fell had risen again, not in form, but in spirit, stronger than before, and it had taught them the most powerful force in the universe was not control, but truth, and that truth, once free, could never be chained again.